All right, what's going on, guys? This is going to be my solo Vorago guide with Necromancy. So, just to preface this, Vorago is going to be a lot different than a lot of other bosses in the game, largely because it is a group boss that was not designed for solo in mind. So, instead of just hitting the boss and then dealing with a couple of mechanics here and there, you're pretty much dealing with mechanics the entire fight. This means that there's a lot less downtime with Vorago, and that he has a lot more opportunities to kill you compared to a lot of other bosses. So just keep that in mind when you're learning this. There are significantly more places where you can die at Vorago compared to even other hard bosses like Solak. So now we'll get into the gear and the inventory setup. Full tier 95s, this is mandatory. I haven't tried it with tier 90 tank armor or power armor, but pushing, which is based on how much damage you do, and that's the core mechanic of P5, requires you to max out on your damage. So you just need to bring the highest amount of damage you can bring. That's mandatory. That's what it is. That's why we're also bringing Tzkal Cape. Again, this is one of the highest damage improvements that you can get with Necromancy. So if you don't have a Tzkal Cape, do not try this boss. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you're not going to have a good time. We're bringing in Essence of Finality. Normally, I would say that Essence of Finality isn't that important, but the Reaper Necklace half of Essence of Finality is going to increase your accuracy, and at Vorago, this is actually pretty meaningful. There aren't that many bosses in the game where a fully stacked Reaper Necklace doesn't give you 100% accuracy. Vorago is one of those bosses where I think even with the fully stacked Reaper Necklace, you're only at like 95% accuracy. So Essence of Finality is meaningfully better here, especially because the Death Guard spec is actually really, really good. I don't use it in most of my guides because you don't typically need this level of gear, but I've been using it a lot more recently in my personal kills, and it's good stuff. You should just be bringing this. Beyond that, we're bringing Ring of Death. Even when you're more familiar with Vorago, it's very easy to die here for the aforementioned reason. He just has a lot of mechanics that you need to deal with all by yourself. Keeping that in mind, I still proc Ring of Death pretty often, once every couple of hours or so. So if I'm proccing Ring of Death once every couple of hours, that means that you guys are probably going to be proccing Ring of Death a little bit more than that. It took me 11 hours to learn Vorago, and if we assume I got to P5 every single time, and it usually takes about 9 minutes to get to P5, that means that I've saved at least 60 mil from this Ring of Death, probably way more than that, because there were a lot of kills where I died in P2, there's a lot of kills where I died in P3 and P4, so this has probably saved me well over 100 mil in death cost. I think this is pretty mandatory here. We are bringing Erethdor's Grimoire. This isn't mandatory. You can certainly get kills without it. The issue is that the other books are either actively bad at Vorago, as in they make your kills harder, or they can make your kills harder, or they're not helping enough to offset how much worse they're making things. So the only other book I would bring is Scripture of Full. The issue with Scripture of Full is that the increased damage you take is going to be substantial, especially if you're messing up mechanics or messing up prayer flicks. But that's the only other book that I would recommend. Because Vorago has reflect mechanics, Scripture of Wen and Scripture of Jazz can kill you, which is not worth the risk. So just keep that in mind. Finally, for our equipped stuff, we're just bringing a Grasping Rune pouch. I have runes for Disruption Shield and runes for Prism of Restoration. Prism of Restoration is only really good if you're bringing a Hellhound. I don't recommend learning on Hellhound because it's going to teach you a lot of bad habits. You're not going to be used to how much damage you need to do. But during Green Bomb Week, which we'll get into later in the video, the Hellhound is pretty mandatory there. So having Prism of Restoration, very, very good stuff for that. Similarly, Disruption Shield isn't mandatory, but it's very good for preserving your health. So now we'll get into our inventory. We're bringing Elder Overload Salves. They're the best overloads. That's all there is to it. Bringing adrenaline renewals. Typically, I advocate against adrenaline renewals, but the requirements on Vorago are so high that you need to get every ounce of damage you can out of everything you're bringing. So the extra 10% adrenaline from adrenaline renewals is worth the cost, in my opinion. We're bringing a Blessed Flask. This isn't mandatory. It is really nice. If you don't have a Blessed Flask, you can swap out these 2 Ceradomin Brew flasks for Super Restore flasks. Totally fine. You're not using that many doses per kill. I just use this because I have one, so that's Blessed Flask. Excalibur's pretty good. I use this twice a fight, so healing myself for like 8,200 over the course of a kill. That's worth an inventory slot. We'll bring our Necromancy runes and our Ectoplasm. This is the other rune pouch for Disruption Shield and Spellbook swap. I bring a Luck of the Dwarves. After you kill Vorago, there's about 3 seconds between him dying and his loot appearing, so Luck of the Dwarves is really good here. I'm bringing Vulnerability Bombs. Usually you only use these on P5. On all the other phases, Vorago will clear your vulnerability after a couple seconds. So I just save these for P5. Power Burst of Vitality. I drink 1 dose at the beginning of the fight because if you do a Tick Perfect Power Burst, it saves you about 4,000 HP. In my opinion, that's worth an inventory slot. On certain rotations, such as Green Bomb, it can also be very good, just because reducing a 10k hit down to effectively a 5k hit with Power Burst, really good stuff. It's also pretty good on the end because you take a lot of guaranteed damage during that mechanic. So on your first the end, you usually can barricade it, but on the second the end, your barricade won't be up again. So having Power Burst combined with Reflect is just going to save you a ton of health. So highly recommend Power Burst. At least 1 dose for every kill, but there are a couple of weeks where bringing a 4-dose Power Burst is going to be super good stuff. We're bringing Brew Flask. We're not bringing Blubbers because this isn't a boss where you need a ton of combo eats. You just need to bolster your health bar, because Vorago does let you chill out every so often, where there's a lot of instances where you do need to deal with mechanics, but Vorago isn't hitting you. So having just brews is really good. 6,000 health per 1 inventory slot is good stuff. We're also bringing Sailfish. Usually I eat 2 Sailfish to kill, 1 for P5 and 1 at the end of P2. I think bringing 5 Sailfish is fine, mostly to make up for mistakes. For the familiar, we're going to be using Ice Nihil for pretty much every rotation. The only rotation we're not using it for is Green Bomb, where we use Hellhound. And then for our Archaeology Relic powers, we're bringing Fury of the Small. Just more adrenaline is more better. Conservation of Energy, more adrenaline is more better. And then Persistent Rage. There's enough downtime between phases that Persistent Rage will usually let you get to 100% adrenaline before the next phase starts. At a boss like Vorago, where every bit of adrenaline is just as important as every other bit, starting every phase with 100% adrenaline is almost certainly better than any other relic power you can have here. So I would say that these 3 relics are mandatory. So yeah, that's it for the gear. Let's start getting into starting kills. Before getting into a kill, it's important to acknowledge that many of the phases 3, 4, and 5s are going to take place before the Necromancy changes that happened on October 23rd. So just be aware that in a lot of these clips, not all of them, but in a lot of them, you are going to see me doing a little bit more damage than we would be doing otherwise. But in my opinion, it's not so much more damage that you would have to dramatically change your rotation or anything crazy like that. So now we're going to get into the beginning of a kill and then phase 1, because there is some prep you need to do before a kill starts. So here you're going to see that I'm going to challenge Vorago. When you challenge Vorago, he will accept your challenge and he'll launch a massive attack. This attack is going to hit you for 70% of your max health. If you power burst at the correct time, you can effectively reduce this damage to 35% of your max health. The timing is right before the bar fills up. So normally I press it right here. So this is when I'm going to press the button. And then if you do it right, the power burst animation is going to play after you land, and you're only going to take around 7,000 damage, but on your new health total. So that's what that looks like when you do it right. So now I'm going to Undead Army, activate Ghost, and then spam click this gap. Then we're going to climb this wall. Something to keep in mind as well is that when you're out of combat, Vorago is going to hit you for 20% of your max health and drain all of your run energy periodically. While you're climbing the wall, this is a mechanic you're going to have to deal with. So you are going to be taking consistent damage while you're climbing. Occasionally, after you climb the wall, Vorago will send a red bomb out. I believe in this kill, he doesn't do that. If he does send a red bomb out, what he does is super consistent. If he doesn't, sometimes he will start shooting blue bombs at you, which is his magic auto attack, while you're traversing the top section. Sometimes he'll wait until you cross the gap that's up here. So those are the two options that Vorago has, and then you're just not going to know until the kill starts. In my experience, pretty much all of the time he doesn't shoot the red bomb here. He will wait until you cross this gap to start his attack pattern. So just keep that in mind. Now we're going to keep climbing here. Just adjusting my settings so you can hear the sound effects for the red bomb. So then we're going to climb this wall. So where I just clicked, you're going to want to click on that square exactly. If you do this, you can dive onto this exact square. This is really important because it clears this entire climbing section. If you mess it up, you'll just dive in place and then you'll take another one of these typeless hits. So it's not crazy important that you get this right, but it does save you a little bit of health. So it is important to get in the practice of doing it, especially because it doesn't cost you anything to make the attempt. So that's what it looks like when you do it right. So here I'm spamming Invoke Death. Then I'm going to start doing a Skulls into Living Death rotation. Now, when he sends out a red bomb, he's also going to send a blue bomb with it. You have a couple of ways of dealing with this. Because of how low my health is right now, I'm just going to Resonance the blue bomb, which is going to always hit before the red bomb. But because the blue bomb has a AoE effect of, I believe, 5x5, if you run 3 squares in any direction, you will just dodge the damage completely. That only applies to the blue bomb that comes with the red bomb. So just be aware of that. Something to keep in mind about red bombs is they will hit you for 2,000 typeless. They'll put all your defensives on cooldown. I believe it's a 10-second cooldown. And then you'll also lose 5 adrenaline. So make sure you keep that in mind when building your rotations or when deciding what order you want to use your abilities in. Because if you, for instance, went to Living Death and Adrenaline Pot in the same tick, and then you would take a red bomb, it's going to throw off your whole rotation. So just a lot of stuff to keep in mind. So we're resonancing this first bomb. There the red bomb hits. You see I take 5 adrenaline. So there, that was his magic attack, which are blue bombs. The tick after you hear the sound effect is when it does damage. So that's the timing you want to get used to for Soul Split flicking. When you hear the explosion, that's when you put on Protect Magic. And then once the damage registers, that's when you put back on Soul Split. So in phase 1, after every red bomb, he's going to do 4 auto attacks. How long he takes to do the 4 auto attacks is pretty arbitrary. It's just whenever he sends them out. But every 4 auto attacks, you're going to get a red bomb. So that's what's going on here. Here I'm just doing Living Death rotation. I don't know why my skulls didn't go off here, but that's fine. So that was the third auto attack. This is the fourth one. And then sometime after this, he'll shoot out a red bomb. So something that you'll notice is while I was doing this living death rotation, I was building up residual souls. This is because you can jump here, and then that will give you the first hammer piece. And then once you land, you can instantly 5-stack volley. And if it drops his health below 30k, it'll kill him. You don't have to deal with the next attack. That's why I decided to jump down early here instead of later on. You'll see in one of my full kills that I'm going to link in the description that usually I wait for him to red bomb and then wait for it to hit, but you don't have to do that here because of just where his health is. So you're going to see this animation play. Then I'm just going to 5-stack volley and the phase is over. After you drop his health to 0, he's going to jump 3 times. He's going to indicate where he's landing with a shadow on the ground. You just want to be as far away from this as you can. If you use an ability, it'll put you in combat, which only really matters if you're not 100% adrenaline. If you are 100% adrenaline, you can use dive and surge and whatever you want to get around. But if you're not 100% adrenaline, then using mobility here will hamper your adrenaline at the beginning of further phases. It's just in a good habit to get in to dodge where he's landing. If it does hit near you, you'll get hit for around 1,000 damage. If he lands directly on top of you, it hits you for like 5,000. So really important that at the very least, he's not landing directly on top of you. Just like with phase 1, phase 2 is the exact same every single week. So no matter what the rotation is, you're doing the same stuff to get through phase 2. Now, the way this phase is going to start is I'm going to summon all my guys, activate Vengeful Ghost, then activate Skeleton Warrior. After that, Vorago is going to start his mechanic known as Smashes. Smashes is very, very easy to mess up. So basically what happens is Vorago will put a bleed on you that will start dealing damage 2 ticks after he puts it on you. Now, the way this bleed works is it will do less damage the further away you are from Vorago, and if you are 6 squares away from him, it'll clear completely. Consequently, the ways that you want to clear this are using Freedom or by using a mobility spell away from Vorago while you are on the same side that you are moving to. Another way to think about this, because that wording was kind of confusing, when you do your mobility, it's very important that you're not surging through Vorago. You want to be surging away from him. So we'll see what that looks like once this starts. Summoning all of our guys here. Activating Ghost. So here, he lands, and you see I have the Dismember icon on my bar. Once he starts moving, that's when you're good to surge. So then he's going to stand still. He's going to put a second bleed on me here. I am using dive, and I'm hovering it above the max distance. As soon as I see the debuff on my bar, I'm going to dive. So he's going to put another debuff on me. You see I wait until I'm on the other side of Vorago so that I'm surging away from him and not through him. With the third smash, he's going to launch a magic attack with it. So I like to Disruption Shield here. If you don't want to Disruption Shield, you can just pray magic and that's fine as well. So wait for him to walk up to me, walk through him, do another surge. And then I'm going to Freedom the last bleed. So now he's going to hit me with 3 auto attacks, either a melee or magic. If you're outside of melee range and he's not walking into you, because he's coded to aggressively walk into melee range during this part of the fight. If he's not walking into you, he's only going to use magic attacks. If he's in melee, he'll use either magic or melee. It feels like he has a preference for melee, but it's just be prepared for both of them. The melee attack comes out a little bit faster, so you want to always pray melee whenever possible. So that's 1 attack, 2, 3. So now he's going to put a reflect on me. This reflect will do exactly what a reflect sounds like it does. It's going to reflect all of your damage besides your conjurer's damage back to you. Something to keep in mind, which is more important if you're not using necromancy, but something to keep in mind here is that it reflects the type of damage that you're doing as well. So if you are meleeing, you can protect melee, devotion, and then build up adrenaline. I don't have protect necromancy on my bar, but if I had it on my bar, then I would protect necro and just keep building on him if I wasn't 100% adrenaline. But that's not necessary. That's super overkill, so don't worry about doing that. He's going to summon these gravity fields in phase 2. You're just going to want to walk him towards the gravity field and then click on it. Once he absorbs a second gravity field, you'll see the bring him down mechanic. After reflex, I like to devotion. So you just saw here that he has 2 different animations for his magic attack. This is really annoying for solo, but it is something you have to get used to. So he has one animation where it looks like he's patting you on the head. Then he has another animation, which is his normal throw with the blue bomb. Both of those are magic attacks. Also, both of those can be coupled with melee hits. So you saw the first one, I got hit with melee first, and then I got hit with a magic attack. This one is just going to hit me with magic. This is only something you really deal with in solos, so just be aware that that's what's going on. In a lot of the clips that you see, and in a lot of the full kills, you'll see when I'm doing my reflect, whenever he does any attack, I always flick melee first, because you just never know if his magic attack is going to be coupled with a melee attack. So now he releases a mental link on you. You can hit him again. Here, I dive away from the ground targeted blue bomb. He's going to send out a red bomb and 4 auto attacks. After the 4th auto attack, he's going to do smashes again. So here, I dive away from him. I'm going to wait for him to walk up to me. Wait till I'm on the other side of him and surge through him. Wait until I'm on the other side and surge through him. Wait until I'm on the other side of him, dive away. Wait for him to walk up to me, and then freed him. You can also just surge away from the last one, so both of those are fine. So there he does 3 auto attacks. He does his reflect, and now this is the second gravity field. So I click the gravity field, and now we're in the bring him down mechanic. Here, you just spam click Vorago. That's it. You also are going to take 250 damage every 2 or 3 game ticks. I don't know the exact timing. This is just going to happen until you finish the bring him down. I like to activate Excalibur and eat a sailfish here. That's how I deal with it. And then if my health drops too low, then I'll also drink a Cerebrew. Something to keep in mind is sometimes when you're doing the bring him down, right after he's targetable again, you will take the out of combat damage. It's hard to know whether or not you're going to take this. Basically, it's if during the bring him down, if you don't instantly click on him, you have like 1 tick of grace period, then you'll take the out of combat typeless damage. Just to be safe, I always make sure I'm at least 3,000 health. That way that typeless hit will never kill me. So here, the bring him down is done. Once he's targetable again, I'm going to need to do 50,000 damage to him in around 10 seconds. If I do, it'll release the second weapon piece, and then I'll be able to kill him for real. If I don't, he will heal to full, and you'll have to redo the entire phase. You'll have to do 2 whole sets of smashes. Not good. Make sure you do 50,000 damage. In order to make sure it gets done, I usually do a 5-stack volley, both Finger of Deaths, and then basics. That has never failed me. Something else you can do is 5-stack volley, Omni Guard, basic attack, Finger of Death, basic attack. You have options for what you can do, but it's always better to be safe than sorry and overload how much damage you do. Now, in a lot of the full kills that I'll have linked, you'll see sometimes I will deathmark here. If he is under 30,000 and you deathmark during this phase, even though he doesn't take any damage during this part of it, it will still reset his health to 100,000. So if he's under 30k when you need to do this damage threshold, don't Deathmark. If he's over 30k, do Deathmark. Also, you saw because of the out of combat thing, I ran out of run energy. So just make sure you turn your run back on. So because I auto attacked him a little bit late here, he sent out a magic attack. You can just resonance this. He keeps jumping on top of the hammer piece, so that's why I like took a little bit of damage because I was too close to him. And now we're going into phase 3. Something to keep in mind about phase 3 is that for every week except for Scopulus, phase 3 is going to follow the same blueprint. That is, Vorago's going to do his special attack for that week, 3 auto attacks, reflect, 3 auto attacks, special attack, 3 auto attacks, red bomb, 4 auto attacks, rinse and repeat. He does that with every single mechanic with the exception of Scopulus. So getting into the routine of counting your auto attacks and responding to when reflects are going to be is going to be very, very important. So the first week is Ceiling Collapse. The way this week works is he will drop a portion of the ceiling in one of the 9 squares in the room. Then he will jump to any of the unoccupied squares. The thing that makes this week a little bit hard is that all of the collapsed ceilings will persist into P4, meaning that depending on where the rocks start, it can make your life very difficult. Now, you can manually detonate the rocks. This will do 4,800 type plus damage to you. If you're going to do this, typically what I like to do is barricade and then run around and clear all of the rocks. That's usually going to be better than just detonating it and eating through it. But ultimately, it's up to you how you decide to do it. I personally would wait until P4 and then barricade. But if you have the adrenaline, you can barricade at the end of P3. So let's see what this kill looks like. I did mess up here, so the rotation isn't going to be great. Something else to remember about the kill is that this phase is not time gated. You just want to kill this as fast as possible. So as he's dropping the first corner of the ceiling, he's going to send 1 auto attack at you, and then he's going to send a second auto attack after he leaps, and then a third auto attack after he lands. So the reflect's over. We're going to start doing damage. 1 auto attack, 2, 3. Now he red bombs. We surge away from the blue bomb that comes with the red bomb. He's going to do 4 auto attacks here. That's 3. That's 4. 1, 2, and then he's dead here, which is really good for us. So he resonance the last one. He's going to jump around. Something else to keep in mind about this phase is that if he drops any rocks directly in the middle, when the next phase starts, he will land on that rock and blow it up. So that's something you don't have to worry about if one lands in the middle. And just so you can see at the start of P4, all of the rocks come back down. Just like with phase 3, phase 4 follows the same exact pattern for every single mechanic with one exception, which is the end. The pattern is waterfall, 3 attacks, weekly special, 3 attacks, smashes, 3 attacks, reflect, 3 attacks, rinse and repeat. The only exception is with the end, instead of smashes, 3 attacks, reflect 3 attacks, it's red bomb, 4 attacks, reflect 3 attacks. So for ceilings, all the rocks are still here, which is very annoying. This is the main reason that ceilings is one of the harder weeks to learn on. It's the week that I learned on, so this was a complete disaster. But clearing these rocks is a pretty delicate procedure, so I was very fortunate that the first waterfall was in a corner that I didn't have rocks in. This phase is time gated. You need to deal with 3 waterfalls before you get the last piece of the hammer. So here he's going to stun himself. Because of that, I'm going to barricade and start blowing up all of these rocks. I blow up 3 of them, and then I don't have time to blow up the 4th one. Now we're going to do smashes again. I freed him the first one. I surge away on the second one. I dive away in the third one. We surge away in the 4th one. And then we surge away in the 5th one. Now he's going to do 3 attacks. That's the 3rd one. Here's Reflect. 1, 2, 3. Now we're doing waterfalls. Here we're doing 3 attacks again. 2, 3. If you're doing group Vorago, this is when he does the stone clone mechanic. Because we're in solo, we never have to deal with this mechanic. That's why it's going a little bit faster. Here he's doing the ceiling. That's attack number 2. Here's attack number 3. We're going to freedom. Or we actually surge away here. We dive away from this one. We surge away here. I disruption shielded late, which was unfortunate. We dive away here. And then we surge past him here. I messed up the bleed there, so I did another surge that ended up clearing it, which is really good. So now we're doing our 3 attacks before the reflect. Now we're reflecting. Well, now he's reflecting. Okay, and last waterfall. We got pretty lucky here. Well, it wasn't that lucky, but it didn't drop in the corner that the rock was. If it did, because waterfall resets all of our defensives, we would just have to blow it up and then eat. It does 4,800 when you blow it up, which isn't the biggest deal, but it is worth keeping in mind. So towards the end of the waterfall, we're going to invoke death and then kill him. I tried to resonance this auto attack, but my resonance was a little bit late. Since the damage nerfs, they updated how invoke death works, where your death mark will execute the enemy the tick they would drop below 30 instead of the tick after. That means if you're spamming an ability after waterfall with invoke death on it and it kills Vorago, he'll never send this magic attack out. Now we need to pick up the last piece of the hammer. And we combine them now. And now we're getting into P5. Finally, we're starting Phase 5. Phase 5 operates differently from every other boss in the entire game in that Vorago's health doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is a mechanic known as pushing. So, from the square that Vorago spawns in on, you need to push him back 7 squares. In order to do that, 1 square of push is about 20,000 damage. I don't know if we know the exact numbers, but in my experience, that's the commonly recited value. Beyond that, every instance of damage that Vorago does to you will push himself back towards you 1 square. So it's a interesting balancing act of trying to juggle how much damage you're doing versus how many times you're letting Vorago hit you. In P5, Vorago has a set rotation, just like all the other phases. Interestingly, you can delay when his attacks go off by pushing him. Typically, you don't have a lot of leeway over whether or not he's allowed to push you, but something to keep in mind is that if you are pushing him, it will slightly delay when his next attack comes out, so you can line up a lot of burst damage in order to prevent Vorago from doing his mechanics in a timely manner. This is often how you get really, really large amounts of push and ultimately finish the kill. You'll also notice I have my Maul of Omens on my action bar. It is next to Putrid Zombie. The click option for Maul of Omens is finish him. Similarly, on your action bar, if you press whatever button is bound to, it's finish him. If you are close enough to kill him, you'll get a chat message that says the Maul of Omens is the only thing that can finish Vorago now. At this point, you just need to get in range of him and then press Maul of Omens. It doesn't matter what's going on, doesn't matter what mechanics are happening, any of that. If you see that message and he doesn't move from that box, you can surge in range, press Maul, the kill's done. So now we're going to get into what a P5 actually looks like. Because there's a lot going on in this phase and there's a lot of things I'm keeping track of, I'm not going to be able to explain my rotation in real time and explain what Vorago's doing in real time. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you what buttons I'm pressing. So once I'm allowed to hit Vorago, I'm going to lead with a Skulls into 4 basics. Usually the order is going to be Skulls, Soul Sap, Touch of Death, Basic Attack, Soul Sap. Then I'm going to Barricade. Once the Barricade is cast, I'm just going to cast my basics, try to build up adrenaline. We're going to talk about smashes, and as they're happening, we'll deal with how we can address that. After the last smash is done, or right before the last smash goes off, I'm going to want to Living Death and a Dren Pot in the same tick, and then just go straight into a Living Death rotation. Ceiling Collapse and Team Split share the same rotation, which is Team Split, 3 auto attacks, Reflect, 3 auto attacks, 3 smashes, 3 auto attacks, rinse and repeat. So here, as soon as I land, I'm summoning all of my guys, activating Excalibur, activating Haunt, using Life Transfer and Eating Up. We're standing in the square. We're waiting a couple seconds, activating Invoke Death, activating Skeleton, and using Skulls. So there's the first auto attack. You see he pushed himself back towards me. There's the second auto attack. So here, right before he uses Reflect, I use Barricade. Barricade is the only thing that stops him from pushing you entirely. So something to keep in mind, this is how it works for every phase. Whenever Vorago does smashes, it pierces your defensives. So that's why I instantly used Escape here in order to get away from him, because my Barricade isn't going to protect me from the smash damage. So you have a lot of options for how you go about clearing these 3 smashes. The P5 smashes also work a little bit differently than the other ones. Instead of it being 6 squares away from Vorago, it is, you need to be 6 squares away from wherever he applied the smash to you. So the order that I normally do is I will escape, walk into him, freedom, and then escape and dive onto him. You can escape, walk into him, freedom, escape again. You can escape, wait for him to apply the second smash, dive onto him, wait for him to apply the third smash, then freedom. You have a lot of options for how you want to deal with it. Typically, I do escape, freedom, escape. And then if you're really fast with your last escape, you can dive back onto him without losing any damage. So that's something that once you get more familiar with, you'll be able to do. But yeah, so we surge away, cast a basic, we freedom this, you walk back in melee range. So that's what it looks like when you do the escape and dive back onto him. And yeah, that was a very, very fast P5. The second weekly rotation is Scopulus. For this rotation, instead of doing the order that he does all of the other mechanics on with, the reflex and all that, Vorago will stand in the middle and he will launch all auto attacks. During that time, two Scopulus will spawn and you will need to kill both of them in order for the phase to end. They only attack with melee and they move at walking speed, meaning that you can kite them. It's a lot to keep track of, stacking all of your abilities and killing them. You have a lot of defensives at your disposal that make this pretty simple. So let's start and see what this looks like. So something to keep in mind is that the Scopulus spawn in the southwest and southeast corner. So if you stand in the northwest or northeast corner, you'll have the most space away from them. So what I do is I like to Deathmark, then Threads of Fate. That way they both are Deathmarked, which is really good. I'm going to Reflect, I'm going to Devotion. That way I can just keep kiting these. I walked a little bit too close there, took too much damage. Killed one of them and resonanced. Now here, it's good to use Reflect because you can tank a lot more damage here. And that's the phase. These phases are actually pretty fast. Pretty much all the P3s are fast besides the end. So now we're on Scopulus. This follows the same rotation as Ceiling Collapse, but instead of spawning in Scopulus after Waterfall and 3 attacks, he'll just send out a Red Bomb and do 4 attacks. Besides that, the rotation is exactly the same. So we're just summoning all of our guys. Going to the Waterfall. Yep, we're hitting a Vorago. Second attack. Third attack. I'm going to send out a Red Bomb here. That was his third attack. This is the fourth one. Now we're clearing bleeds. We freed him the first one. Surge the second one. Dive away from this one and Disruption Shield. You don't have to Disruption Shield, but it does save your health. Dive away from that one. Surge away from this one. Now there's 3 auto attacks. This is the third one. Reflect. 3 autos. Another Waterfall. Rinse and repeat. So here you'll notice I'm like not really hitting him anymore. If you hit him under 20k or so, he will heal all the way to full. Because I'm going to execute him with Deathmark, there's just no reason to do any more damage to him. So that's the rationale between just standing around, basically. Clearing bleeds is normal. Disruption shield this bleed. Surge away from this one. Surge away from this one. 3 autos. 2. 3. Reflect. 1. 2. 3. Last waterfall. And now we Deathmark. Use volley. Pick up the last hammer piece. The phase 5 for Scopulus and The End is Purple Bomb. Purple Bomb is basically a red bomb that doesn't pierce your defensives. So we experienced a little bit during the original The End mechanic, but because we're usually barricaded during it, we don't experience the full effects. But Purple Bomb will put your defenses on cooldown, but won't pierce them. They also won't reduce your adrenaline. Consequently, the rotation for this P5 is Purple Bomb, 5 auto attacks, Reflect, 3 auto attacks, Smashes, 3 auto attacks, rinse and repeat. So yeah, same setup as always. We're going to Undead Army, activate Vengeful Ghost, use Life Transfer, invoke Death, activate Skulls. Just using our basics. Barricade after the 3rd auto attack. So that barricade was actually a little bit early, so I am going to get pushed back a bit here. I'm getting ready for an escape. We freed on the second one. We escape the 3rd one, dive back in, and then we do our Living Death rotation. Because Death Mark was cleared, I just went back in to reapply Death Mark. Also, I didn't mention this in the last P5, but vulnerability does work on P5, and he'll stay vulned for the entire minute. So now we're just repeating. We do barricade. This barricade's a little bit late, but it's all good. We escape from here. Our freedom's on cooldown, so we have to escape again. And then I'm going to dive backwards. We walk back in Skulls. We cast Death Mark. We're just using basics here. I use tier 90 weapon spec there. I use Omni Guard. Now we're just using basics to try to push him. And there. So you see here in the chat box, only the Maul of Omens will be enough to destroy Vorago now. That's when he's close enough to the edge for you to maul him. This rotation is Vitalis. This is by far the most difficult rotation because Vitalis are incredibly obnoxious. Now, for the special attack, Vorago will send a Vitalis orb in one of the quadrants, except for the one that he's standing in. Typically, as long as you're standing in the southern half of the room, he'll only send the Vitalis in the northern half of the room. They move at running speed. They're considered walls, meaning you can't attack units behind them. Also, you can't walk through them. Beyond that, if you target them, they can sometimes redirect your attack to Vorago. So, if you're trying to kill them during a reflect, it's actually very, very hard. Something else to keep in mind is that instead of Red Bomb, you get Smashes in this phase, making it especially difficult because Vitalis make it hard for you to move around. Let's just get into the kill. So as normal, we're summoning all of our guys. We're going to prioritize standing in melee range of Vorago. That way the Vitalis can't surround us on all 4 sides. So you see he's sending the orb behind him. He does reflect. Gonna do 3 auto attacks. Summon another orb. So what I did here was after the reflect ended, I split Soul and Threads of Fate so I could just kill all of the Vitalis around me. And then I used Soul Sap, the Volley of Souls, and then another ability. So this is the last auto attack. Now Smashes are coming. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I was very fortunate that they died before the smashes finished. Since the damage nerf, it's definitely possible that you have to deal with the full set of smashes. However, you should still be able to get back in melee range of Vorago after all of the smashes and kill him before he summons another Vitalis orb. Alright, so we're moving on to Vitalis week. Again, same rotation as all of the other weeks for P4. We're going to do Waterfalls, 3 autos, Summon Vitalis Orb, 3 autos, Smashes, 3 autos, Reflect, 3 autos, Rinse and Repeat. Now, the Vitalis will follow you around, but because he only summons 1 orb at a time, instead of summoning 1, doing 6 attacks, then summoning another one, you have a lot of time to clear these Vitalis orbs, so I recommend just killing all of these Vitalis because they're going to make life way harder, especially while you're trying to get rid of Waterfalls. So I was waiting for my adrenaline to regen to resummon all of these guys. After the changes I went through in the 2030, you won't have to do this, but it is something that I did do. So I was just going to do 3 autos. This is the second one. This is the third one. Now we're clearing bleeds. Here I put skulls on one of the Vitalis. Surge away from that one. Try to kill this last Vitalis. Surge away from that. Surge away from that. And you'll notice instead of just killing Vorago, I'm really focusing on killing all these Vitalis. In my opinion, it's more important to kill the Vitalis than to do Vorago's mechanics as fast as possible. So that's why I was doing it the way that I'm doing it. You can see here I'm kiting Vorago while I'm killing all of the Vitalis. And then yeah, we're just going to run this back. His health is pretty low, so instead of hitting him, I just reflected here. He summons another Vitalis Orb, does 3 auto attacks, starts doing smashes. Here I opted to just stay as far away from the Vitalis as possible. Now here I walked up to clear out all of the Vitalis. Vorago used Reflect, so I'm trying to make sure I'm not hitting Vorago. That's 1 attack, that's 2 attacks, that's 3. Now I'm just going to kill the Vitalis while getting under the waterfall. So, because of the thing I talked about with the last kill where I was standing around waiting for this phase to end, I incidentally damaged Vorago with the Death Skulls, which healed him up to 100k. So that's why now I have to actually hit him. And yeah, that's P4 Vitalis. In phase 5 for Vitalis, Vorago will send a Vitalis Orb, do 3 auto attacks, Reflect, do 3 auto attacks, Smashes, do 3 auto attacks, Rinse and Repeat. Now, the notable thing about Vitalis Orbs is that whatever square they land on, in P5, that's usually going to be wherever you're standing, it will do 2,000 typeless damage, and then however many Vitalis would normally spawn, 1 less spawns. In P3 and 4, reducing the number of Vitalis from 5 down to 4 doesn't matter as much, but in P5, what happens is it spawns a random number of Vitalis between 2 and 4. Because reducing that range by 1 is significantly more meaningful, you're pretty much always encouraged to catch the Vitalis orb. Now, it's also important to kill all of the Vitalis on sight because they affect pushback. Now, their accuracy is pretty low, especially when you combine darkness, but it's not worth just ignoring them because if you're messing up smashes while you're also dealing with Vitalis orbs, your kill just ends pretty much instantly. So, highly, highly recommend just killing all of the Vitalis. Since this was recorded before the adrenaline changes on the Conjures, you're going to see me just waiting around here. The reason I'm waiting is because I'm waiting to go out of combat so I can summon my guys for free. So, unfortunately, because of that, my initial setup is pretty late. And this kill ends up going a lot worse than it has to go. We do still end up getting the kill, but it does go worse the way we have to go. So that should be the third auto attack. So now we're going to cast Barricade. Okay, that's the third auto attack. I'm going to try to walk up in melee range here. Clear the first smash. Freedom the second smash. We do freedom that one, but it was a little bit late, but it's all good. One of the big reasons that you want to be standing in melee range of Vorago as well is that his melee attack has a very low accuracy compared to his magic attack, which always hits. So now he summons another Vitalis orb. All four of them spawn, and you see I'm getting pushed back a ton here. So I'm just using Scythe to clear them out. You can use Scythe, you can use Threads of Fate. Either works. So there, I clicked on Vorago. In the old system, that was really, really bad because I don't get to resummon my guys for free. In the new system, this doesn't matter. So I'm sure you can see how annoying Vitalis is just because it messes up all of your rotations. There we had to dive away because our angle was diagonal, which is just really bad. Proc Deathmark here, we got a lot of push off of it. There's one Vitalis still alive and I didn't even realize it. I just realized it there, so then I go and killed it. So I cast Deathmark, and I got really lucky here. The Vitalis that spawned wasn't hitting me that often, and only one of them spawned. So I'm barricaded. That's the third auto attack. We escape. We get melee range and freedom. We use skulls and we actually time it perfectly so that we can escape, dive back in, and our skulls will still bounce. This requires extremely particular timing. I don't recommend doing that. Until you're comfortable with this timing, just wait until you dive back in. So here, I'm just trying to burst Vorago, and we ended up getting it. Next mechanic we're going to go over is Green Bomb. Now, what Vorago will do is he will launch a green bomb in one of the quadrants of the room, and then it will slowly approach you. When this hits you, it will do 10,000 damage, and then Vorago will instantly go to his next mechanic. Now, you'll notice for this kill, I have a Hellhound summoned. Your Hellhound will reduce the damage of Green Bomb. It reduces the damage of everything, but notably reducing a 10k hit is very, very good. And then we also will be using Power Burst of Vitality right before the Green Bomb hits, just to make life a little bit easier. Now, we only do that for the first Green Bomb because our Power Burst won't be up for the second one. For the second one, you just need to be as close to full health as you can be before it lands. The Green Bomb also has many of the properties that the Red Bomb has, where it will put your defensives on cooldown and it will pierce your defensives, so just be aware of that. As always, we're summoning our guys, activating Haunt. One of the good things about this mechanic, which we'll talk about more in P5, is that Vorago just kind of stands around for like 5 seconds after he shoots the Green Bomb out. This makes this one of the easier phases to learn pushing on. So if you are waiting for a week to learn how to push, Green Bomb and Scopulus are really good weeks. The End is also another good week, and we're going to talk about that more when we get into P5. You'll also notice that the Green Bomb is leaving a mist behind. That mist will do small amount of typeless damage and drain your adrenaline if you stand inside of it, so just don't stand inside of it. Well, here he's going to auto attack twice, auto attack a third time, go into reflex. Okay, he's sending out Green Bomb. Now here, I phased him so fast that the Green Bomb didn't reach me before it detonates. If you do this, the Green Bomb won't do damage to you. Like with the last clip, given that this was pre-damage nerf, it's possible that getting a second Green Bomb skip isn't possible. If that's the case, you just want to eat closer to full. I didn't eat to full here specifically because I knew he was going to die before the Green Bomb landed. So now we're on Green Bomb. Rotation's the same as last time. Big thing to keep in mind is that the mist that the Green Bombs put down will persist throughout the entire phase. Sometimes they can land in the corners, and when they do that, it means that while you're standing under the waterfall, your adrenaline is getting drained, and you're taking a little bit of damage. So just keep that in mind when pointing out your adrenaline usage. That doesn't matter anywhere near as much as it used to, because your conjures don't cost adrenaline anymore, but at the time, it was a consideration. Now we're just summoning all of our guys. Getting onto the waterfall. Here, I've opted into life transfer. I don't know if it's strictly better or if it's to taste, but while your ghost costs adrenaline at all, I think that it was strictly better. Now you probably don't have to do it since ghost doesn't cost any adrenaline. Here we're leading on skulls. Here I'm going to resonance the second auto attack. Just going to keep hitting him. I started doing this on Green Bomb because after Vorago launches the Green Bomb, he just stands around for a couple seconds. So you do get a lot of free healing there, which is nice. So he's going to send 3 attacks before the Green Bomb lands. I just used Devotion and then healed to full. And then 8. Clearing bleeds. Three auto attacks. That's number 2. That's number 3. This is Reflect. 1 auto attack. 2. 3. Rinse and repeat. Also, something to keep in mind, I didn't use Power Burst here. I just didn't want to. That's literally the only reason why I didn't use it. If you want to use a power burst on this first green bomb, that's fine. You shouldn't use it on the second one, because then your power burst is going to be on cooldown for the beginning of P5 where he sends another green bomb out. Getting onto the waterfall. Three auto attacks. Sends out another green bomb. I got pretty fortunate here. Neither of these green bombs landed in the corner, which was nice. Just clearing bleeds as usual. I try to angle myself so I'm not running into the green bombs. So there, that's the typeless damage that you take if you fail clearing a smash. You get hit with the second one. I ended up taking 6,000 typeless. Well, 4,800 typeless because I have a Hellhound alive. And obviously I signed it, drained all my adrenaline. I still finished this kill, but I thought it was important to have this clip in here to show you what happens when you mess up smashes. You're not instantly dead, but it is a lot of damage. And if you sign, it's also a huge momentum killer because you lose all of your adrenaline. Oh, 3 auto attacks after the reflect. Now we're just going to death mark and hit him with anything. And now we're going into P5. So the last P5 we're going to talk about is Green Bomb. This one is a little bit different, where depending on how much you push Vorago after Green Bomb launches is going to determine how many times he hits you. Basically, he's going to launch Green Bomb, and then he's going to keep hitting you until the Green Bomb lands. After the Green Bomb lands, he's instantly going to go into Reflect. Then it's going to be 3 auto attacks, smashes, 3 auto attacks, repeat. Because he does so much standing around after he launches Green Bomb, depending on how much damage you're doing, you can usually only take 1 or 2 attacks total by just unloading on damage on him. Now, you do need to be careful about what type of abilities you're doing, because if he stops getting pushed and Green Bomb is landed, he can instantly go into a Reflect. So if your Death Skull's crit and then your last skull goes to him, you can execute yourself. So just be aware that that's what's going on here. So we summon all of our guys. Same as usual. We eat up so we can life transfer. My rotation was a little bit delayed here. I opt into not using Death Skulls. I also didn't power burst there. I definitely could have power bursted. We go to barricade and we get a relentless proc, which is very nice. We escape the first set of smashes. We cast skulls because we know we're going to freedom the second set. We escape and dive in. Cast another skulls. And there it is. So you can see here, it says you need to be closer to use this on Vorago. If you try to use Hammer and you're too far away, but he is able to be mauled, then that's the message that you'll get. Now we're on Team Split. For this mechanic, Vorago will turn you blue, and then he will put a blue square and a red square on the ground. You just need to stand in that square until Vorago detonates. He'll explode and then he'll start attacking you. Now, one thing to note about Team Split is that it completely stops all of your damage. So if you have any abilities traveling towards Vorago, those aren't going to work. And you also can't cast any abilities that require you to be within a certain range. on Vorago because he's invulnerable. What this means is that if your conjures are on cooldown, you can't summon them while he's charging his big attack. This is much more annoying in phase 5 than it is in phase 3, since this phase shouldn't last long enough, but it is something worth mentioning. The attack pattern is the same as always, so it's going to be team split, 3 autos, reflect, 3 autos, team split, 3 autos, red bomb, 4 autos, rinse and repeat. Hero summoning all of our guys. We're running the blue square. So we're going to skulls here. That's the second auto attack. This is the third one. Because my skulls was bouncing back into Vorago, I made sure to resonance. I'm just going to reflect these 3 autos. I split soul here, which was a mistake. Don't do that. Now, whenever Vorago starts team split again, he will put all of your defenses on cooldown. That's why, despite me having reflect on, I took damage here. It's because he disabled reflect. No, after he explodes, we're just going to keep doing damage to him. There's 3 autos. He's going to red bomb. Now we have 4 autos. And that's team split. This is P4 for team split. Same rotation as all the other phases. You're just going to waterfall, team split, smashes, reflect, rinse and repeat. So here we're already under the waterfall. Starting with skulls, that's his first attack. We're going to resonance the second one, I think. Yeah, we resonance the second one. Then he's got a team split. Fortunately, this one's right next to us, so I didn't really have to do any crazy spam clicking, but as the team split ends, we're going to activate Skeleton, and then we're going to reflect. Gonna freedom the first bleed. Surge away from him. Surge away from him and disruption shield. Surge away from him. Surge away from him. Now we're doing our 3 autos, and then reflect. You resonance the first hit, and then we just prayer flick the next 2. That's the third auto. And now here you see I'm walking back to the corner instead of diving in. The main reason I'm walking back is because I can drop combat and resummon my ghost, even though I'm too far away from Vorago. So if you can walk back to the last corner, I recommend doing it. Just because the dropping combat to summon your guy is really nice. So I'm not that interested in hitting him here, so I'm just going to reflect. I click on Vorago and click off so my ghosts can hit him. Freedom the first smash. Surge away from the second one. Dive away from the third with disruption shield. Surge away from the fourth smash. Surge away from the fifth smash. Also, occasionally in these clips, you're going to see me using stop commands. That's because that's the only way to get your conjurers to stop hitting something. And if your conjurers drop Vorago below like 15k, then his health will reset to 100k. So that's why I'm like spamming the stop command to make sure they don't hit him. Finally, we're on the end. For this mechanic, Vorago will face one of the corners of the room and put his arms up. After a couple seconds, he'll put his arms down and then he will slowly start moving his arms around the room. You just want to follow his arms as he's moving. Every time he moves to a new quadrant, there will be bombs in that quadrant that you need to click on in order to detonate. The only bombs worth detonating are red bombs because they put your defenses on cooldown. Once he sends out all of the other bombs, you're going to want to barricade the first set. And then if there is a second set, you want to reflect and use some other defensive. You can reflect and power burst. You can reflect and debilitate. Either of those work, but either way, you want to barricade the first set, double defense with the second set. Also, something to keep in mind, this is after the nerfs, so this is exactly what your kills are going to look like. So here, we're walking inside the arms. He always moves his right arm first. The left arm moves faster than the right arm, so you just want to make sure that you're following his arms. So we don't care about these blue bombs. We're going to detonate the explosion here. We want to detonate all of the red bombs so that we can have our adrenaline and our defenses off cooldown when it's time for this. So 2 abilities after you're in this final quadrant is when you want to barricade. I did this barricade a little bit late, but you just want to barricade early. He's going to send his 3 auto attacks out, and then he's going to reflect. Because you're barricaded, you can just build adrenaline on him if you want. At least for 1 or 2 attacks. I didn't realize my barricade was still up, so that's why I wasn't doing it. Now here you're going to notice that I'm spam clicking. During the end, in P3 and P4, in every mechanic during P4, and during team split, as long as you have conjures alive, your conjures trying to hit Vorago will keep stopping your movement. So in order to deal with that, you need to spam click wherever you're trying to go. Otherwise, your character will just stop. That's why I'm spam clicking here. You're going to see me spam clicking in every P4 that I'm doing. So just be aware that's why I'm doing it. So he's doing another The End. There's 3 bombs in each corner, so you just want to keep spam clicking until all of the bombs are gone. Building up our adrenaline for more defensives. My devotion, I opted for devotion here because this is my first time doing this mechanic. The purple bombs will keep putting your devotion on cooldown, so you always want to reflect or you want a devotion early. Also, you don't see it here, but if there are any bombs that aren't launched yet, when Vorago's dead, they will never launch. So killing this faster does save you a lot of damage in that regard. Now we're on the end. The rotation here is a little bit different, likely to save time, where Vorago will do Waterfall, 3 attacks, The End, 3 attacks, Red Bomb, 4 attacks, Reflect, 3 attacks, rinse and repeat. Something else to keep in mind, this rotation was done on the nerfed damage, so this damage is going to be a little bit more accurate to what you're used to. So Waterfall's done. That's first attack. Second attack. Third attack. Now he's going to start The End. We're spam clicking here because of the issue I was talking about earlier where you'll keep stunning yourself. We're just going to make sure we're following the right arm. Now here I actually mess up. I don't click all 3 of the red bombs. I only click 2 of them, and it just messes up my whole rotation. I lose a lot of momentum here. So I only click 2 of them. I'm not really sure what to do here. So I just reflect, and it ends up not being good enough, and I sign. It's not the biggest deal that I sign. You'll see me do it right again the second time around. So this is the 3rd auto attack. This is the 4th auto attack before it reflects. So because I have no adrenaline and I don't have any health, I just have to eat here. Resonance, the first one, to get some health back. That's the 3rd auto attack, where it's going to keep soul splitting here to get some HP back. We dive under. They're just using basics, following the arms. I have to rebuild all of my stats, which is really annoying. So this time we actually click all 3 bombs and make sure they all launch. Resummon Ghost. Then when he stands up, we're just going to barricade. This will protect us from all of the remaining bombs, and it'll protect us from the next 3 attacks and the first attack from this mechanic. So that's the 2nd attack. 3rd attack. 4th one. Now we're on reflect. 1 attack. 2 attacks. 3. Last waterfall. We're just death mark, and then we're spamming volley of souls just to make sure he insta dies and doesn't get a chance to launch any auto attacks. Pick up the last hammer. Now we're going into P5. That about wraps up my guide on solo Vorago. There's a couple of things that we didn't really go over. For instance, there's a mechanic known as bomb stacking that you can do during all of the reflex in P5. Personally, I think that's a lot of work, and I think just using barricade is going to be more than enough, especially while you're learning. Once you already understand the boss, then you can go into bomb stacking. But yeah, this is one of the longest projects I've ever worked on for this channel. In the description, I'm going to link 6 full kills so that you can see what all of the techniques I've taught you here and what each kill looks like in totality. And hopefully you guys can start killing Vorago. If you liked the video, feel free to drop me a like or a subscribe. I put a lot of work into this, so I'd appreciate it. If you want to support me monetarily, you can become a member. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.